Welcome back to another episode of Sentience, Conversations about Lives Being Lived. I am your host, Alison. For today's show, I feel a deep sense of grounding and having the opportunity to talk about a topic that is very close to my heart and has been a part of my life in one capacity or another since I was young. Energy work, and the many different elements and pathways that often are connected to it, is a point of both intrigue and awe for me, and something that I never tire of learning about. It has often been a challenge to discuss this type of work with people. Some want nothing to do with it, others think it is not real. But many are open to looking at it, exploring it further, or simply willing to listen. A community of individuals around the world with a shared appreciation. The unknown is something humans are inherently driven to figure out. Scientists commit their lives to discovery and proving or disproving theory. But what about things like string theory, quantum mechanics, multiple dimensions, past lives, divine messages? Concepts that are not easily understood through traditional methods of research. These are all topics that interest me, and I am always happy to cross paths with another who is game to look at things from a new perspective, collectively connecting the dots in many ways. When I have the pleasure of spending time with today's guest, a tidbit or insight almost always comes up in our conversations, and I am grateful for that. Something new to ponder. She has been a staple in the Maui community for many years and has so many different life experiences and accomplishments that I find both impressive and inspiring. From running for mayor, to being a published author, to hosting a radio show, the list goes on, and I am proud to have a connection with her. We have a lot to talk about today, so with that being said, I am thrilled to introduce the one and only Alana Kay.
Mahalo.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I love your intro. That's so perfect. That is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You're very in tune yourself, too, as we're going to be talking about being in tune.
Thank you, Alana. Thank you. Well, I am really very thrilled to have you here today and to have this discussion today, because it's, like I said, it's definitely something that is near and dear to my heart, and you don't always meet people that are interested in talking about this kind of content. So. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited to see where our conversation goes today, and I know we have a lot to talk about. So if you can start by telling me a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about yourself. I know. I guess I'd have to say that from the time I was real young, I would stand up in my crib. I remember standing in my crib. So I don't know how young I had to have been to have that memory, but just seeing a sea of ghosts in front of me. Now this is going to get better, this is, So when I was younger, I didn't really understand what was going on. I was in a large family. My mom was a single mom. We were on our own a lot. There wasn't anybody to help me with anything, and I was just always having encounters with spirits, and it scared me. I just remember it scared me tremendously, and I worked on blocking it out. And I did suffer chronic headaches, and by the time I was in my early 30s, I had a headache that lasted 4 months, and it was there when I woke up during the night. And you're going to be showing a clip of mine where we talk about an event, and there was a culmination of events that pushed me to really open up my spiritual senses, my feeling center, which is where you get all of this from, your third eye, your feeling center, and go on this journey. I had shut that down all my life, and I always say, well, I didn't have anybody to guide me. When I would tell my mom I was seeing spirits, she would say, well, just call me if one of them bites you, just scream, I'll come help you. She made it into a joke, so.
Downplaying it.
So I was experiencing that all my life, and that's.
So the headaches that you talk about, were these occurring when you were a child as well?
I even had them when I was a child, yeah.
Interesting.
And it just kept getting worse and worse all my life. When all of this stuff happened, I was ready to take another pill for the pain one Saturday morning. And I just looked at it, and I flopped down on the couch. And I said, God, what do you want me to do with my life? And on the F, my headache flew out of my head. And that was when I went on this journey. And it was a lot of other things had happened during that time, such as people I went to high school with had recently committed suicide, and there was some other things that were happening during that time.
And this was during your 30s?
Yeah, my early
Okay.
30s. And I was just overwhelmed sensory-wise. I was exhausted from life. I was ready to go and get checked for chronic fatigue syndrome. I thought, I had something wrong with me. I had chronic back problems. I had the chronic headaches, and and that took me on a journey and it was interesting, is from that point on, my health improved.
Interesting.
Substantially, yeah.
Interesting. And you're originally from the Midwest?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love that connection with us because we're 2 cities apart.
Yeah,
You're
Chicago
from,
and Milwaukee.
Yes, Chicago and Milwaukee.
Yeah. And we used to go there for fun. We'd go to Chicago.
And see, we would go to Milwaukee for fun for like a Sunday. What is the name of that restaurant that I told you about? The German
Mader's.
restaurant? Mader's.
Yeah,
That's it.
The culture there is something people aren't aware of. They see Laverne and Shirley and all that stuff.
Right.
Or
great show,
they don't
great show,
realize
but Milwaukee, and it's quite a fun town. So I really appreciate that connection that we have.
The arts and architecture.
Yes, yes. Okay, well, so the work that I'd like to discuss is pretty deep, and so we have a short film that Alana put together that I would like to show first, and then that will kind of give a background of the story that I'd like to dive deeper into with you about a specific, well, it's about one person that evolved into many different people, all interconnected.
One person who was, when I found his things, was he had already transitioned, and ended up finding things that belonged to people that were connected to him.
And this is John Clement.
To this day, I still don't know who he is. I mean.
So everyone else was connected to this one person. I see. Okay, and this all took place in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin?
Well, in Wisconsin, between 1983 and 1993, approximately. So 93, I was 33. So this was part of all the things that came together, but it was like the one of the really big factors in me going, wait a minute, something's going on here.
Okay. So this was over about a 10-year period in different parts of Wisconsin, just to give the viewers kind of an idea of what we're going to dive into with this short film you put together. Okay, well, let's go ahead and show the short film. We're calling it John Clement, and we'll start here and then dive into this story a little bit deeper. So if we can please run that.
I have always experienced supernatural phenomena, even at a very young age. It didn't cross my mind to dig deeper into the subject until the occurrence of a culmination of a group of events in my early 30s. The main event was the realization that many relics that I had obtained over a 10-year period in entirely unrelated locations were connected or belonged to members of a group of World War I veterans who I determined most certainly knew each other. While I saved all of their things and often looked at them for enjoyment, it was not until 1993 that I realized the connection. Because this happened 30 years ago, I have lost track of some of the names. The story begins in 1983 in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where I had relocated from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to accept a job managing the rehabilitation of a large apartment complex there. Kenosha was 90 miles from Milwaukee. The complex was built on an old farm and orchard across from the University of Wisconsin Parkside. I immediately felt very much at home in my new location. At the rear of the property, there was a condemned farmhouse from the late 1800s, along with a barn. One day when my maintenance crew was cleaning out the barn, they found a Victorian-era photo album full of pictures from the mid to late 1800s, along with greeting cards from the same era. The connected piece of ephemera from this find is a greeting card from 1879 with the names of 6 family members 4 of which had the last name Rummery. In 1987, after returning to Milwaukee, I found a stack of letters in a large trash pile that a soldier named John Clement wrote to his mother while stationed in Europe during World War I. He had recently passed away and his home was being cleared out. The home was about 4 city blocks from my current home. This find included 2 of Clement's diaries, newspaper clippings, a very old family history, and a handful of photos. I spent countless hours reading through his things, and I felt like he was with me. Furthermore, his energy had a very familiar feel. While most of the letters were addressed to the soldier's mother, there was one envelope in the group that was addressed to Carrie Rummery. Does that name sound familiar? I did not make the correlation between this envelope and the greeting card from the barn in Kenosha until much later. For the most part, this story is going to revolve around John Clement because he was the one common denominator. During the same year, my husband, who performed maintenance for a property management company on the east side of Milwaukee, came home one day with items he found while emptying an abandoned walk-in safe that was going to be converted to an office. This find included an antique projector, hickory shaft golf clubs, and a painting dated 1837. The tag on the golf bag had a military rank and name on it. Shortly thereafter, in 1988, my husband and I purchased our first home in Milwaukee from the daughter of an older man who had recently passed away. There was another less significant find of another World War I veteran's belongings that consisted of family photos and documents, including home photos of the visit to Milwaukee of Robert F. Kennedy shortly before he was assassinated. In November of 1993, my brother suggested that there may be a connection between all of the things I had found through the years, so I stayed up late one night and began to look through the relics to see what I could find. The first thing I found was that one of the names on the greeting card found in the barn in Kenosha, dated 1879, matched a single envelope addressed to Carrie Rummery in the grouping of soldiers' letters that I found years later in Milwaukee. I was able to refer to an obituary and cemetery records to determine that the woman on the greeting card was indeed the same person that John Clement had written to. This gave me the motivation to continue looking for connections. The next thing I realized is that all of the men, including the one I bought my home from, were all born around the same time, and then I quickly realized they may all have been in World War I. I called the daughter of the man who owned my home, and she told me that he was in World War I. Also, as it turned out, I was currently doing decorating work in a home once owned by a member of the 107th Engineers, whose name I found in the John Clement grouping. Coincidentally, this was all happening just before Veterans Day. The day before November 11th, I placed a call to the local VA and explained my story and provided the phone operator with the names. At this point, I had made connections with 5 veterans of World War I. She said I cannot tell you much about them because their records burned in a fire in 1972, but they were all members of the 32nd Division. I am pretty sure they knew each other because their service exit dates are all late in 1919, which means they were part of a small group of selected service persons who stayed in Europe after the armistice to participate in the March to the Rhine. At the same time, there was other psychic phenomena occurring in my life, so I opened my heart and my intuitive channels and embarked on an intense spiritual journey where it seemed my soul was getting me caught up for lost time. I learned to hone my intuitive skills and gifts. I was no longer going to ignore them. Up until this juncture in my life, I had persistent headaches because I was blocking out this part of myself. As I strengthened my connection, I began receiving downloads of information, much of which are contained in my books that I wrote in recent years. The journey continues to this day because it's an infinite journey. After the landslide of realizations, I contacted one of John Clement's brothers and gave him a substantial portion of the ephemera. Apparently, his brother had thrown it out without his knowledge. He was very thankful. And by the way, I also found out that John Clement lived around the corner from me when I was a child in the 1960s.
John, even watching it now, it's hard to believe. It's an interesting thing. It's like there was just so many coincidences. You talk about serendipity, synchronicity, but this was just overwhelming. It's kind of overwhelms you again when I look at it, but it's like, the interesting thing was, even though it launched me in a certain direction, I still to this day am not 100% sure who John Clement was to me. Like I said, I feel like I knew him, but I must know him on some level, I must.
Well, what strikes me about this experience in your life is, because it spanned 10 years,
Yeah,
correct?
right.
That something within you put those pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
Because they could have come to you and they could have been random occurrences that just went right
That's what
past
I thought
you.
they were, actually, until my brother said something.
So that you were, it's almost like you were putting the story together subconsciously over the years, and then when it was time, the answers started to become clear.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Wow. Now you gave me a whole nother thing to think about.
See,
Yeah,
this is what happens when you and I are.
It is. It's, like I said at the end of the video, it's a infinite journey, and that's what's interesting about all of it. And I had such a planned out life. You know, we had a painting and maintenance company. We worked for the wealthiest people in the area, the Claus family,
Wisconsin.
the Pabst. Yeah.
Okay.
I had this impeccable little house, and dressed my kids in designer clothes. You know, it was like this perfect little life, and it was according to what I thought it should be, you know. And then I had to move in an entirely different direction, which really shocked the people in my life. It really disrupted everything. But just the fact that the headache went away, and all of a sudden I had this energy that was unrecognizable to me. It was like, wow. And it was so soft and uplifting and so energized, I had to follow it. And then I started to just get all of these realizations, like, you know, for months. I just kept going.
Once you made that shift,
Yeah.
that's when everything.
It was that day, that shift.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So for your life in Wisconsin, you really were more trapped with your energy work, and you weren't able to expand it to what you do now.
Right. Well, I tried. I have to tell you that my family just came right out and said, this is really scaring us. And the thing is, like, somebody that I know really well, I said something last night. Well, I don't know her real well, but I see her all the time. You know, Maui is like that. We see people. And she said something about something was scaring her that I was saying. And I said, you know what? No, it's a really beautiful thing, the afterlife, you know. To me, I guess we can get to that. We'll see where we go with this. But I learned that it's not scary if you understand that it's what's unseen is actually the larger part of our existence. To live a superficial life, that's just dust to dust. You know, there's this whole life, and that's where, whether people realize it or not, that's where creative genius comes from. That same portal where the intuition or the mediumship, you know, it's a portal into the unmanifested or the unseen, as you so eloquently wrote about in your intro.
Yes, I am in agreement with you on that, because it's just, there's so many depths to.
It's so deep. It's
yes, that
yeah.
go way beyond what the day-to-day human experience.
Yeah, the survival
is.
mode.
Yes,
Of just, yeah.
and so to be able to have that, perhaps clarity, or
It gives you clarity.
yeah, or drive or intuition, whatever it may be. I think it's a little bit different for each person.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it comes down to the same thing, to explore that unknown. But I think for each person, it's a little bit different of what brings them to that. And so I don't want to use just one term for it. But I'm really very thrilled for you that, you know, despite how hard it was for decades to be almost trapped and having these headaches and these physical ailments, once you were able to break free, it seems like it changed everything for your life.
It was really exciting. It was when it first happened. And then, you know, it kind of plateaus a little bit. You know, it slows down. You know, like I said, I felt like it was catch-up. It was a very exciting time in my life. I was just staying up all night just realizing things and reading books. I suddenly realized there was books out there that were going to help me along. Most of it was, though, it was getting really tuned into and trusting my inner guidance. And at one point I was just really motivated to move to Maui. And that shocked people even further. It's like, you can't do that. It was like, my family's been in Milwaukee since the 1840s. And that's what you do. And you all kind of stay in the same neighborhood. Nobody does this.
I can vouch for that. It's a Midwestern thing. It's you know, it's.
That's why I sometimes call myself a spiritual warrior, which I told you once when we were talking, is because you have to really be strong in your beliefs in order to continue on this way. Because I mean, a lot of people are, I just don't believe that. It's like, wow, I even have more stories, and I'm telling you, it's real. It's real. And it's a good thing.
But it's also okay to honor that, because, you know, it's not for everyone, and that's okay. And that's something that I've really had to sit with. And, you know, each person's journey is their own.
Right. And usually Spirit only connects me with people who are either in the same space as me, or they're ready to hear something. For instance, the woman last night. It's like, because my intuition also, remember, I've been practicing it this whole time, and I've been doing this radio show for 8 years. So I've been practicing it, and I've gotten better naturally. You continue to get better at doing intuitive readings and whatever I do. I also can use my intuition to tune into that person who's scoffing at it and realize, what is it that I'm here for? What am I supposed to say to this person? So like you said, it's very unique. I guess that's where I really came to that realization very early on, is everybody is so unique. There's nobody who's the same, and there's nobody who perceives things the same way. Although when everybody's tuned into the heart level, there is going to be a lot more harmony and synchronicity.
A collective.
Yeah, because that's coming from the one heart, the one space. Then there's normally going to be, but you have to really sidestep and shelf your ego substantially in order to be in that place. But anyway, I do get guided as to how to handle each person. And I just want to mention here, because it just crossed my mind, I don't go around reading people. And I think that's one thing people are afraid of.
Yeah.
It's really important as
like you hear about mind. Oh, are you reading my mind?
Right.
And
yeah.
No.
I have jokes I make about that, but they're a little obscene to say here. But but people think I know. You know, it's like no.
Right.
But it's part of this is it's a double-edged sword. Because the sensitivity is a great thing for things you want to do with it. But at the same time, you can pick up everything. So I spent a lot of my life learning how not to pick up other stuff. And when I go out into the world to go shopping or go somewhere where there's people, a party or anything, I'm staying in my own energy field. And I use my energy, my internal energy, to guide me and to know. And I even do my readings from there. It took me a while to learn how to do my readings from inside, not on the outside.
I can understand that completely. It's very similar for empaths, and and being able to, you know, have that shield, because otherwise you're absorbing everything from an emotional standpoint. Filters is a good term for it. And so being able to protect yourself ultimately, and know when to shift away from things or shift to things, it's an art form, really.
Well, it's a lot of, I think I help a lot of people with that, like on my show. Once again, everybody has different triggers, like why are they picking up certain energies? And then on the other thing, on the other flip side, people also pick up things and they don't realize it. And I know a lot of people that are in my life are what I call an untrained empath. And they're just bombarded all the time, and they keep trying to solve the problem in so many different ways, but the only way they're going to be able to fix their physical, mental discomfort or what have you is to really learn the skills that they need to have for their unique sensitivity.
Yes, yes. Otherwise, you're just going to constantly be walking into a wall.
Tired and
a puddle on the floor is experiences I've had in my life, where it's just like you absorb everything.
Energy sponge.
Yes, yes. That is a great analogy, an energy sponge. Okay. Well, I know we have to stay on track, and we could talk for hours. So you left Wisconsin and you came to Maui. Okay.
In
so
98.
98. Okay.
Shortly after my awakening.
Okay, so can you talk about, the work that you've done here on Maui, and shifting once you had that discovery in Wisconsin, how you were able to apply that differently to your life here?
Okay, well, I did begin trying to figure out, how do I take this new me? I knew how to do the old one. I knew how to do all of that really well. But how do I take the new me and integrate it into everyday life? And I'd have to say that the main thing was that I had, let me backpedal a little bit. So what happens is when you have this kind of an awakening that's very sudden, some people may have little awakenings, but I had a huge one that happened, kind of like how people that have a near-death experience have, where they're flung into this huge cosmic experience, and then they get back into their body and they're like, now what do I do? That's kind of like how I was. And so naturally, there were countless things I started to explore, but when you're in that space of heart-centeredness, you get a different vision of the world. And you start to see, when you understand how everything is connected and we're all connected, and you no longer have that self-centered, my bank account, my house, my kids, you start to have like more of a universal perspective. The universal perspective, and also the clarity you get from being in that space. If you're foggy in the head, that means you're just picking up all kinds of electrical fields and thoughts and things, and you're processing too much. When you're inside and you're really doing it right, you have this clarity. So what happens is I can look at the island of Maui or politics or whatever, and I have clarity. And so I've run for office and developed Sustainable Aloha, a show I do, and a magazine that I did 3 digital prototypes of. And there's a website, sustainablealoha.org, if you want to check out that stuff, where I wanted to share that clarity I had about things, because I see people like our leaders that just don't seem to know what's going on. So that's why I run for office.
And you ran for mayor twice.
I ran for mayor twice. Last time I didn't actively run because financially and various other things in my life I wasn't able to, but I did participate in all the forums. But I did do I did campaign and do the whole thing with a campaign manager and banners. I had big banners with, and he was very flamboyant. He was funny. He made my stuff with all these big hearts. And but people did say, what it is about you is you have the heart and the mind. And truly, I believe, and and that's my vision for Maui, is someday we do have leadership that is both heart and mind, and not just so politically, and or asleep behind the wheel. It takes a lot to be in that position. So I don't want to be too critical. But I have done things that were pretty high pressure, such as managing those apartments I took on in 1983. I am able to handle a large amount of information. I even was before my awakening. So I think when people look at we're going to be looking at my books or all the things I've done, and some people just go, how can you do all of that? It's just that when you open up your vessel, it's like having bandwidth. It's like hard drives. I always say, like my books, I accumulate all this information over a period of time. I'll be experiencing things and realizing things, and I get downloads or little blips of information. And at a certain point, I know it's a book. And I like to help people with writing too, because everybody has their own way of doing that. Now, my way is I don't write anything down. And this can go on for a year or two, and then I go, it's time to write a book. And I always say it's like stored in this external hard drive. And when we have so much accessible, let me say that. Mm-hmm. It's not just me. You gotta be willing to do it. Yes. You gotta be willing to spend the time there. But we have so much available to us, way more. I think David Hawkins, who wrote the book Power versus Force, is he one of the ones that said? He says most humans function on a scale of 0 to 1,000. Most humans function under a level of 200 as far as they used energy and kinesiology to track like how thought processes affected your strength, your inner strength, and so on. Because 200 is the level of courage, and most people can't get past that. You know, we're so pressurized by society to just be in survival mode. And in order for you to walk into the unknown and trust and bypass the need for survival and support, some people, I still sometimes say, are you crazy? Every once in a while, once a week I have to check in with myself. Are you crazy? Are you just making this up? No, okay. And then, but I see how much it helps people, like by doing my show and my books and the feedback I get from the people who have bought my book. So I mean, it's not just about me, it's about helping humanity evolve, but to see the value in going into that deep part and what you can get from there. Mm-hmm. And then everybody is going to have a different, whatever the cosmos is going to bring through each person. It's amazing to think what if everybody would do that.
Yes.
What a world we could live in.
Yes.
If everybody would do it.
Maybe one day.
Oh, they will.
Maybe one day. I feel like it's expanding.
Yeah,
I feel like we're in a really unique, and as challenging as the world is right now, it's also quite a gift to be alive right now and witnessing what's occurring globally and universally and beyond anything that we can see with the human eye. I mean, it's
That's a perfect way to put that, and I'm glad you said it, because I've arrived at that. The last few years have been really challenging to arrive at the point where you say, this is an exciting time to be here. Because you look at the stuff that's going on, and you're like, oh my God, you know.
It doesn't even feel possible or real, and it's happening.
But that's right, but that's what it is that what I call it is the matrix is collapsing. And my last book I wrote last year is called This is Armageddon, which sounds like a scary title, but it's finding peace during these turbulent times. And it's about trying to explain that this is really a spiritual war, this is a mental battle, which is good news, because that means you can shift it. You're not waiting for something from the outside to shift it for you. It's about us shifting to heart-centered awareness and living.
Yes.
And it's always there. It's like, that's what it seems like the Wizard of Oz is. When Dorothy at the end, she says, there's no place like, just click your heels together and say, there's no place like home. Your heart is your home. I always told my kids that when they were little.
Yes. Oh, that is beautiful.
It's there. And it was there in me too, and it wasn't until I moved from being mentally focused in life to dropping down into my feeling center. As a matter of fact, when I launched that opening, I cried for 3 days straight.
Wow.
And it was such a good feeling. It was like, I just felt warm, and I finally knew how to relax, you know. It was, because it's being in the head, going to the heart, two different things.
Like night and day.
Yes, it was. And it was always there. It was right inside of me.
That's the most fascinating thing about all of this, is that it's always been there. It's always been there.
It's always been there. We just ignore it.
It always will be there. Yes. Yes.
And that's your eternal self. That's the other thing.
Yes.
Our anchor during these times are getting connected to your eternal self. Because the temporal world is being shook up really badly.
Yes. Yes. I'm just so glad we're having this conversation today.
Thank you. Me too.
Okay, so I'd like to sort of move into the work you've done with, so you launched your own publishing company, which is Violet Phoenix Publishing.
Yes.
And so you have published 10 books already that you've written?
My own books.
Yeah, okay, so you have written 10 incredible books, and you're also publishing other authors.
I've published a handful of books for other people, and I really feel the need to, there's so many publishing scams out in the world, and being on Maui too with the people that are of a deeper nature, generally speaking, I wanted to create a place for people to get honest and real publishing at a decent price, and where you're not just dealing with a phone bank in some other country and paying way too much and being sold. I don't know if people, anybody who's looked into publishing has found all these things, you know. There's so many scams, and then you don't really even get what you pay for. So that's why I wanted to offer that, because I feel like a lot of people have books to write. I find that when I do my readings.
100%. And as someone who spent much of my career in the publishing world, I can vouch for how challenging. There are so many talented writers in the world, and you can spend your entire career trying to get a meeting at a big publishing company, and it'll never happen.
And I'll tell you what,
never happen.
It's not going to happen anymore, because the face of the publishing industry has changed over the years. It's moving into what we call indie publishing, independent, indie, because that's the direction the world is moving in. Just like we used to have television where you had 6 stations, 3 or 6 stations.
Yes.
Then now we've moved to YouTube, where you have millions and millions, because everybody, I say in my one book, Wishing on Your Own Star, in the future, when the world finally wakes up, we're going to have more stars and less superstars, because, and that's what's already happening. That's why so many people are, I want to write a book. I know I got to write a book. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. But because that's actually where we're moving, where we're not going to just idolize one person and he sells 7 million books or 10 million books. It's going to be, everybody has a perspective to bring to share, to help people with this whole movement. And I even when my first book that was kind of launched me in this direction, Wishing on Your Own Star, I rewrote it 15 years later, but I wrote that one in 2001, and I felt a force pulling me to Borders one time, and I literally felt the force, just like I did when I found this stuff, where I feel something pulling me. And I went to the bookshelf, and there was a book called, now remember, mine's Wishing on Your Own Star. Somebody else had written a book called Following Your Own North Star. And I looked at it, and I'm like, wow, she's saying the same things as me, but just in a different way. And I figured out that that has value too, because people have like a different way of explaining things or understanding things.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter that somebody wrote a book similar to mine. She's saying it in a way that that group of people is going to understand. But it's a big awakening, and everybody's waking up, and there's plenty for everybody, and we all have something to add to it, and the publishing industry is changing. Yeah, they won't publish anybody anymore unless you're already well known. They don't say, we were, like they're going to discover you. That's just not going to happen anymore. They want the quick buck. They want the somebody who's already well known before they'll take you on.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that you brought that up about, coming across another book that has a similar message, worded in a different way, and that goes back to the collective. And I think that the more we move towards resisting or fighting, whatever word you want to use for it, that connection, because everybody wants to be so within their bubble.
Yeah.
Once we're able to break free of that, I think that those dots are going to be connected so much easier. And just, I really hope that I can witness that in my lifetime.
Yes.
And I feel like we're on a good track for that.
Yeah.
There's still so much work to be done, but
Right.
I really feel like it's possible now. It didn't feel possible
I got to
before.
tell you that when I was young, I always saw 1111, which is a really big thing now. You go on the internet, and I think there's 21 billion
Angel
hits
numbers,
on 1111.
yes. On that
But
specific
in
one.
1974, I got a digital clock. It wasn't digital. It had the flip things, and I would hear this tick, and I'd look, and that whole thing about being scared of the night anyway. I'd hear this tick, and I'd look, and it'd be 1111. and it would shoot something like electricity through me, but something said it was trying to communicate with me. And then one time I was looking at my Bible, and I think it was 1973, and it said, one day heaven and earth will be as one. And I said, that's what the 1111 is. I've since come to understand, 30-year story short, 40-year story, is that the 1111 is alignment of mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional bodies. And at the moment that you see it, they say all kinds of things, but I trust what I got. That's when you're all aligned. Everything is aligned. And that is what we're looking for, is the alignment of all the bodies. You don't want things fighting against each other. If you have a heart that's saying, oh my God, I hate this job, and you gotta leave, and you just keep wanting to run out the door, and I take no responsibility for your actions, make your own decisions, but I'm just saying, if your heart is really pushing you to do something and you're ignoring it, not only does that cause fatigue, because your energy comes from your soul, so you want to follow your soul, but it also causes anxiety. So that's why a lot of people have anxiety right now, because their 4 bodies aren't working together. So you get a lot of information from my books about getting your bodies to work together, the reasons why. And it's really mechanical. It's almost like, I call it metaphysics. It's like a field of science. It's the layer in between the unseen, the unmanifested, and then the physical world. There's these metaphysical laws, and if you become familiar with all of them, then you understand how to end yourself with the physical side. But that's what takes the practice, because we learned how to do that. Then to learn how to do that is a whole nother.
Yeah, it's incredible. Okay, well, I would like to show the clip that we have of all of your published work. So if we can please show that. Gosh, I mean, that is just such an impressive catalog of books that you have, Alana. It's so impressive. And so congratulations for being able to connect with that part of yourself and to, allow the stories to come out and allow these visions to come together. It's so impressive. So impressive, and such beautiful artwork as well.
By the way, the Persistent Pearl is about a dog that used to frequent Keavakapu Beach, and she has so many interesting stories with this dog. And there was always people stopping to video her because she'd be riding the waves. And so I decided that she's crossed over now, and I decided to do a book on her. That one's I'm still working on it, so that one's not available yet.
I love the title, that Persistent Pearl. Yes, I absolutely.
She's real stubborn. She's got a mind of her own, and she's hilarious. And she used to chase moose, and they're from Alaska, and she used to chase moose and bears.
Oh, wow.
So
very persistent. Okay, so along with the books, we talked a little bit about this, along with the books you've written and published, you also have worked with a handful of authors to help publish their work.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to, I'm really impressed by the mission statement for your publishing company, so I'd like to actually read the mission statement because I think it's really important for all of the authors out there who are really going to feel connected to you and the work that you do. So Alana's publishing company is Violet Phoenix Publishing, and their mission statement is, our mission is to serve those who are striving to get closer to Spirit, God, Source, and also to assist indie authors. We feel that big change is often achieved through small things, and that every life and every voice is integral to the awakening of our planet. We are thrilled to be answering our call to service. Will you answer yours? Wow.
Right.
Wow. Wow.
Those are the kind of things, and I know you have this happen to you too, and everybody does, where I sat down and it just flowed out of me. And that's the neat thing about being connected, that creative portal, the stuff just comes out.
Yes.
And it's like, you could say it in like 5 pages, but it just comes out. I haven't seen that for a while. That's really interesting. Yeah, because I was trying to get to that before, is I want to be that conduit for the voices of all the people that have something to share, because we can support each other through the process of awakening. And I've bought a lot of like ebooks. I don't always read the whole thing, but it's like I'll be up at night thinking about something. I'll go on Amazon, grab an ebook written by a totally unknown author, and I'll find some really good little things in there that I really, really help me or support me. So
those tidbits.
I really like those tidbits, that just help move you on or help you consolidate your story or confirm things for you. Yeah, we're all in this together, and it's not just about the big, Doreen Virtue and Eckhart Tolle and Wayne Dyer. And I met him. I did a reading for him just before he transitioned, and yeah, it's about all of us. And then it's about aligning with your inner teacher, learning how to do that. Yeah.
Because ultimately that is your guide.
Yeah.
Is your inner teacher.
Inner teacher, inner coach. And the more you get comfortable with it and trust it, the more it is there for you. Like I can even just wonder something. I just wonder, and then I'll hear an answer. Mm-hmm. It's just gotten to be that easy.
And to trust that.
Trusting it. Trust has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, versus discrediting it and saying, oh, no, that's just...
And lately everybody's been saying, I've been getting it from inside, and other people have said this too, it's either yes, no, stay, or go. When it comes to your instincts... He
taught me that one, and I really like that.
As soon as you start analyzing... Somebody literally said that the other day. I'm like, I say that. Yeah, other people are saying it. See, that's when it comes from inside, from the inner teacher, from the unmanifested. Then you have the synchronicity and you have the agreement. Yeah, all along it's been like that. Yeah, so that's what latest I've been hearing, and I know a lot of people, because time seems to be moving so fast. Mm-hmm. You really want to align with your inner guidance because it saves so much time and energy. And if you start to go into analyzing, well, no, but then you've jumped the tracks. It's all about being aligned with that. Turn left, turn right, go to this store now, go to that store. And then you find that, well, you didn't do it the logical way, you just did it according to your instincts, and you go to Costco now, and then you run into somebody you haven't seen for 6 years, and you're so glad you ran into them. And that's how you get the synchronicity, and that's how that same place, like I said, is where you get the creative stuff, and that's where I get my intuitive readings that I do for people. Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully everyone remembers that. Yes, no, stay, or go. And it's that simple.
It is. Okay, never mind.
Right. Oh, okay, so I know that we're coming to a close soon. So do you want to discuss a bit about what your goals and visions are going forward with your publishing company, with your television show, with your radio show, everything that you do here on Maui and in life in general? What are your ultimate goals and visions? Yeah,
well, I always wanted to do all of the above at one time. But I'm feeling...
and you have and you are. Right?
I'm feeling like kind of just setting aside sustainable aloha for now, which is a big passion of mine.
Okay.
The sustainability issues. I do want to say, if anybody from Maui sees me, sees this show is that the spirit of Maui wants us, and we have to surrender to that, just like you surrender to your soul. Maui is our communal soul. Is that Maui wants us to live closer to nature and more simply. And I've always said in all my things, we need to think like an island. We need to really change. We live like we're in a small, in California or something. We have to live in harmony with this ecosystem, but I'm going to leave it at that because there's so much controversy over so many things right now. I want to just stay out of anything that touches on politics or sustainability right now, because it's such a gnarly, tangled up mess. And really focus on being available for people, because that just, it's really hard not to get in your head or not to get into confrontations. And right now, based on the time, we just went through Lionsgate. As people know, we're going through stuff on Maui, so I feel like I need to be available not only for myself, but for other people to help with just the things we've been talking about. Working on connecting with your inner self, healing your past, healing trauma, and that's going to be my focus from here on in. And as a matter of fact, my daughter in California, who's been trying to do other things, I think she might have just surrendered today to doing the same thing. I raised my kids to be creatives, as I know that you have. You only have one son, right?
Yes.
Yeah. See, I raised my kids to be creatives and definitely keep them in tune to their intuition. And one of them is a very gifted, very, very gifted intuitive. I can throw her a name. She's never met, and she's good in a different way. She reads on a slightly more shallow level than I do, which has its value. I read as a much deeper level, connecting with the person's soul. But I believe today she might have finally surrendered to doing that.
This specific day,
I really
today?
think today, this morning.
Wow.
She's like, more questions about problems she's having. I said, Tina, I think you're just being blocked because you need to do intuitive readings. And she finally said, yeah. And I'm like, yay, 31 years old, finally.
Wow.
Well, that's around the age when I realized too.
But
and sometimes that's your greatest need, and it's going to serve you, and it's going to serve, and that's where I'm at. I'm like, let's just set everything else aside right now.
Yes, and look at that alignment, that happened today, and now we're on the show today talking
I know,
about
and this was set up a month ago. It's interesting, that's that thing about how the story... the story comes together, and then I call that cosmic tumblers sometimes.
Cosmic tumblers.
But as far as goals,
you have all of this great terminology.
I would love to someday soon, hopefully, have like a retreat center where I love Lumeria on Baldwin Avenue, but I would switch the U and the E and make it Lemuria. Because I believe this was Lemuria. Back when Lemuria existed. I can feel the energy of Lemuria. And I mean a lot of people who realize that too.
Interesting.
So I'd switch the two around, but that's like my ideal retreat setting. It's, if anybody, they don't have very many pictures online, but it's really neat. The grounds are kind of sprawling, and it has individual places where classes are held. And
It's
just
stunning.
where you can
really
walk
is.
into this whole atmosphere. I had a little store where people came and did reading as a spiritual bookstore in Wisconsin very briefly before I moved here. And I like that idea, but then you're really tied to that. But to have other people working with you and have the natural aspect of it and, good food, and people can either come for classes or stay overnight, whether they're from the mainland or from Maui. Yeah, that's my real ultimate goal.
I think that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe you can partner up with Lumeria on something right now, and who knows?
Oh, I've tried.
Oh. Okay. Well, there you go.
No, they're
You
all
tried.
about yoga classes and stuff, and they're all like, no.
Well, draw from the inspiration.
No, I'll just let God take care of it. I really know how that works. You know, let's let the pieces fall together.
Yes.
If it's mine, it's mine.
Well, I am very, very excited for what lies ahead for you. I think it's going to be it's just going to get better and better because you keep opening yourself up more and more. And so it's bright light ahead.
And I once heard somebody say, maybe it's the road less traveled because it doesn't lead anywhere. but and a couple times I've thought that. I'm like, are we there yet?
Yeah.
And it took me 7 years of doing my radio show before I actually believed it. It was really funny. I would just go like, did that really just happen?
I feel like I'm always saying that. Did I just do that?
And you know, to just accept it as, and this last 2 years, I've worked on accepting the fact that I'm normal. The whole thing where people are skirting their true selves and scurrying around like on the hamster wheel, that's not normal. It seems like it is, but it isn't. I'm normal. We're laughing, but I'm serious. I
know what you mean.
After 63 years, I finally realized I'm the normal one. So yeah, thank you. But, yeah.
Well, Alana, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here today, and I'm really very grateful that we were able to talk about your journey and, you know, just learning about the different connections that you've made over your lifetime and putting those pieces together. It's really is a gift for each person to be able to come to a place in life where they're able to see that and to embrace it, not to be afraid of it.
It's
yes.
the whole, it's everything is
yes.
in here, that whole world. It's access through here, you know.
Yes, and whenever a person's ready, then I think it becomes clear to them. So it's, each person has their own journey. And I'm just really thrilled for you that you found yours.
And I'm so glad you had the insight to have me on your show. I appreciate it tremendously.
Well, yes, alignment. Okay, well, to learn more about Alana's work or to go and meet with her, talk with her about publishing opportunities, you can visit alanakay.com, and we'll put that up at the end with the closing credits. Thank you for joining us for Sentience, Conversations About Lives Being Lived. All episodes can be watched on Akaku channels in Maui County and streamed everywhere on the Akaku Maui Stream app. You can also view all episodes on our YouTube channel, Sentience, Conversations About Lives Being Lived. I am Alison Samalita, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.